Hello everybody, welcome back to another one of my videos. This is CraftyRia and we are going to recycle a Christmas card. We're going to recycle this card into this card. This was a card that a friend of mine sent to me. It has been used. It was probably a business card, and it's pretty by itself, but obviously I couldn't reuse it the way it is, so I have to make it into a new card. And as usual, I make my cards, most of them in the A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it fits into a standard A2 size envelope. It is a sheet of 8 1/2 by 11 cardstock, folded in half and then cut in half. So it's a 1/4 sheet size, and it's the A2 size. And here you can see I have a bow with some matching ribbon, and then an embellishment here in the center of the card. And this card does not have an embellishment, it's just flat. So we're going to go ahead and make that today. So let's get crafting. I'm going to set this aside. The one I'm going to make today is not exactly the same as this, but it's very close. I don't have the same materials. So the first thing I did was I inspected this card, and I realized that this photo is on its own piece of cardstock on here. So rather than just cutting it out of here and having all that extra bulk and weight to my card, I'm going to go ahead and take it off of this. And the way I did it on that other one is, I hope it works well for this one. I loosened up the corner, and then I got my bone folder and put it up underneath, and then just ran it right up the side. And there's a bead of glue there, and then there's also a bead of glue going down this side. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. And just run it up there. There. So it came off. You can see the 2 beads of glue down the side. And then I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. I can reuse this cardstock as scrap cardstock. I can cut the sentiment out and use that on another card. It's going to be too wide for this card, for the inside of this card, but I could save it for another card. Or I can use it as a sheet of background cardstock. I can use some of this gold part as glimmer, or whatever I wanted to do. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in my scrap folder, my scrap drawer. And this is what I have to work with. And obviously it is too big for a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card, but if I cut the Merry Christmas part off, it leaves me with just this portion, and then it's perfect for a card. So that's what I'll do. I'll start by cutting that Merry Christmas off, and I'm going to use this little guillotine cutter by Fiskars. I think I got this at a Tuesday morning or at Big Lots many years ago, before I had my big tonic one. It's just little. It measures 4 inches, but it does a pretty good job for card making. So I'm going to take it and line it up just so the end of Merry Christmas is there. And there, I just cut that off. Now I can trim this down and use this as a sentiment on another card, or maybe even for the inside of the card. So I'm going to set this aside, and I'll probably do that. And then I have this. Now, from having made the other card, I realized that this was a little wide. If I'm going to mat it on red, it takes up almost the whole thing. So I'm going to trim a little bit off this side. And I'm just going to eyeball it just a little bit. Maybe 1/8 of an inch. Or however wide that little piece is. That's all I took off. And that way it gives it a little more room for a red border. And in my true style of loving to recycle, I have taken a red envelope, the front of a red envelope, and I'm going to use this to mat it on. I like to use papers that are lightweight whenever possible because then it doesn't add a lot of weight to the card. And this has some writing on it, so I have to be careful the way I put this on it because I want it to cover up Merry Christmas. There. So I'm going to determine how wide I need it here and then cut that this way. Actually, what I'm going to do is first, there's some crinkles in the corners. I'm going to cut off a little bit off of that edge just to get rid of those crinkles. And then I'm going to go ahead and just mat this down on it, kind of as far over to the left as I can, trying to make that top border be as straight as I can. If it didn't have writing on it, I wouldn't worry about it. I would just cut it to size. But since it has writing, I have to be a little bit more careful. Because I do want to cover up where it says Merry Christmas. Okay, so there. So I just have it lined up so it has a little bit of a border up at the top, and I'm going to measure how long I need it to be at the bottom. And since I'm not cutting it out of regular cardstock, since I've already got this all messed up kind of, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a mark there so I know how long to make it. And I'm just going to cut it right at that mark. The thing with this paper cutter is you have to really hold your paper in it. And I'm going to trim down this edge, and then I'll trim down the other edge. There. So we have a little bit of a trim all the way around. It's not actually perfect. There's a little bit less on that side, but I've already cut it and that's the way it's going to be, rather than get out another piece of paper. Okay, the only other thing I could think of, no, it's not going to come off, would be to take it apart and cut that a little bit, but that's not too bad. I'm going to go ahead and just leave it like that since it's handmade and it's not perfect. So I ran out of this ribbon on this card, so I had to look through my stash to see what else I had. And I have this bow. This came on the top of a candy box. So I thought that bow would go really good there. And I have these two ribbons. But I'm thinking, since the background is already red, I'm thinking of using this gold. I picked this gold ribbon up yesterday. It's this Offray ribbon. I went to a church rummage sale and they had it there, and I went ahead and picked it up, and I thought it would go perfect with this card. So yeah, I think I really like that on there. Get my ribbon cutting scissors and just cut the bottom. This side is frayed a little, so I'm just going to cut that frayed piece off. And to store my ribbons, I usually just try to keep them on the spool, and I have a pack of these rubber bands from the Dollar Tree, and I just put the rubber band on it. It doesn't really hurt the ribbon, and yet it keeps it from unrolling. There. And that's the way I usually store all of my ribbons that are on a roll. This is very curly, this ribbon, and I don't think it has a front or a back. I think they're the same. So I'm going to go ahead and put some adhesive on this paper. turn it where I can see it good. And this ribbon does fray, so I definitely want to fold it over on the back. And to fold it on the back, I always start on the paper and put the adhesive all the way to the end of the ribbon. And then I fold it over. And I'm going to trim off some of that so it doesn't poke out from the back. Okay. And then I will adhere it down to the card. I try to put adhesive on the ribbon on the back and then around it on the paper, just to make sure it adheres down really good and solid. When I line something up to glue it down, I line up this top corner and this bottom corner so the whole thing is pretty centered. Okay, and then we just have the bow to put on. I already put a little piece of a sticky dot on the back, and I thought that would go perfectly on there. That looks really good. There we go, right at the top. I really love the way that looks. And then I just need a gem for the center. I have this big bucket of gems. They're called In Bloom. I got it at Hobby Lobby with one of their 40% off coupons. I've got a ton of them and I love it. I use them a lot, but there's still so many. So I think a big red one. Here's the biggest red one. I think that's the perfect size. There we go. That's the perfect size. These don't have adhesive on the back. You add your own. And a lot of the times I'll use a dot of tacky glue. This time I'm going to use one of these sticky dots. I happen to only have the big ones handy, so I'm going to show you how I take this big sticky dot and make it small. I don't know if you can see the round sticky dot. I'm going to start by cutting it in half right on the roll. I'm going to cut it so I am only taking half of it off. And sometimes you have to really pull it apart. There you go. So now I have half of it. And then for this, I really only need a quarter of it. So I'm going to cut this half in half. And that leaves me with a quarter. This other piece I'm going to go ahead and stick right back on the roll. So that way I have it for another project. I'm going to take this sticky dot and stick it right onto my paper, my card, right where I want it. Sometimes I need to burnish it down or push it down with my bone folder just so it sticks to the card. This is a glossy card, so it's harder to get things to stick to it. And then I'm going to peel off the backing, and then I'm going to stick this gem right on top of it. There. So there we have it. In just a minute or so, we created a gorgeous card. You can do this with cards that you have recycled or even new cards that you got that you want to kind of spruce them up. If you don't need to make a new center, you know, like a new middle, you can just do this to the top of the card, add a gem, add a bow, and it'll really spruce up your store-bought cards. If you didn't save your Christmas cards from last year, you can look at thrift stores, garage sales, different things like that, and see if you can find some Christmas cards, or get out the Christmas cards that you put away that you did not send last year. Maybe you don't want to send the same card every year, but if you change it up and do something like this, you're sending a whole new card. So I think that's great. So we have those. Now I want to see about putting this in the middle of the card. On the inside of the card, I should say. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it down a little bit. I'm going to cut a little bit off the top. And then a little bit off of each side. Let's cut the small side first, so I have more to hold on to over here. And then I will cut some off of that side. And that way it'll be your greeting on the inside, and it will go perfectly with the card. It will match. I'm going to take this red. I don't have enough of this red here to mount it on, and I did not plan ahead. Okay, I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go and get something to mount that on. Okay, I'm back. I have this piece of scrap envelope that I'm going to go ahead and mount this on to do it on the back. I have the one from my other card. I might as well do them both at the same time. I'm going to go ahead and cut this one down. Okay, so I have 2 of those now. I'm going to mark my paper about where I want to cut it. Again, I'm just eyeballing. I don't know if you can hear my bird, but he's making the sound that this makes, and he's saying, "Hey, Ria." And now he's beeping. All right. I'm going to attach this. My bird's name is Crichton, and he's an African gray, and his cage is right that way, right past the door. I keep the door shut when I film, just to keep his noise down. All right, I'll cut this out. There we go. And I'll do this one real quick. So be sure to get your Christmas cards out and see what you can do with them. I hope you saved your used ones from this past year. If not, look at some store-bought ones and see what you can do with them to spruce them up. You can also do this with birthday cards, anniversary cards, thank you cards, any kind of cards, all occasion cards. And you can make all kinds of great cards. I save all kinds, not just Christmas. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and put this in the middle. There. So you've got the front of the card, and then you've got your sentiment, and then you can write whatever you like inside. I don't really like wasting any part of a card, so this is perfect. There we go. All right, I have 2 cards made from the same card. They're slightly different, but they're pretty close. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Please hit that subscribe button down in the corner down there. And please leave me a comment and let me know if you have Christmas cards to recycle and if you're recycling right along with me. I hope everybody has a wonderful day and get crafting. Bye-bye.